Hello everyone, welcome to Mitra's IAS. Myself Nimish Kapoor. Today we'll continue with our PT 2022 crash course, and our objective today is to finish in this session the important topics with respect to environment. So in today's session we'll cover the topics 61 to 78. So first of all, the first topic for today is CDRI. So CDRI is Coalition for Disaster Resilient Infrastructure. So it is a multi-stakeholder global partnership of national governments, UN agencies and programs, multilateral development banks and financing mechanisms, private sector and knowledge institutions, right? So it's not just intergovernmental body, but all these stakeholders are there. Now, why it is important? Because Prime Minister of India launched CDRI during his speech at the UN Climate Action Summit on 23rd September 2019. So India is a founding member. It aims to promote the resilience of new and existing infrastructure systems to climate and disaster risks. Right. So currently 22 members, 7 organizations. Right. This is important. So CDRI, countries, right, organizations should know, need. So firstly, thematic areas. See, they'll be looking into the government and policy, risk identification and estimation, standards and certification, capacity building, innovation and emerging technology, recovery and reconstruction, finance and community-based approaches. CDRI's secretariat is located in New Delhi. The need is that because of Sendai framework for disaster risk reduction. So Sendai framework for disaster risk reduction. The role of improved disaster resilience of infrastructure as a cornerstone for, so it is very important. Hence, India has specifically under the Sendai framework laid in CDRI laid the importance of the importance of disaster resilient infrastructure. It includes 4 specific targets, the Sendai framework, which are related to loss reduction to reduce global disaster mortality, reduce the number of affected people, reduce direct disaster economic loss, and reduce disaster damage to critical infrastructure. Importance for India, you can read here why it is really important, because it will provide a platform to India to emerge as a global leader on climate action and disaster resilience. CDI boosts India's soft power, but more importantly, its wider connotation than just economics as synergy between disaster. So it will bring India on a global platform, like it has done for India in the International Solar Alliance, which we've already read earlier. It will also facilitate India's support for resilient infrastructure in Africa, Asia, etc. Right. So this was all about CDRI. Now, one of the important things under CDRI this year, another initiative, which you can call under CDRI, which was launched, was IRIS. We've talked about it earlier briefly, but we've not talked in detail. So Prime Minister Narendra Modi launched Infrastructure for Resilient Island States, IRIS, on sidelines of Climate Summit in Glasgow. Infrastructure for Resilient Island State, or IRIS, is the first major initiative by CDRI. Right? It is the first major initiative under CDRI. So Coalition for Disaster Resilient Infrastructure is an international coalition of countries, United Nations agencies, multilateral development banks, private sector and academic institutions that aims to promote disaster resilient infrastructure. So we've already read this. 26 countries will be the part of IRIS. The coalition will not create any new infrastructure, rather it will serve as a knowledge center for member countries to share and learn best practices with respect to disaster proofing of infrastructure. It will work towards making existing and upcoming infrastructure in member countries. So here important is that no new infrastructure will be created, but rather than it will work as a knowledge center. The aim of CDRI we have read. Now under this IRIS, achieving sustainable development through a systematic approach to resilient, sustainable and inclusive infrastructure. So what are the sectors where the focus will be? Telecommunication infrastructure, energy infrastructure, transport infrastructure, housing infrastructure, water and sanitation infrastructure, coastal infrastructure, health infrastructure. So in a way, you can also say that for critical infrastructure, iris will be really important. Right. So we have read about CDRI iris. Now we'll also talk about another topic, Global Resilience Index Initiative. So recently, global coalition of 10 organizations launched the Global Resilience Index Initiative at COP26. So it will provide a globally consistent model of assessment of resilience across all sectors and geographies. GRII will be using cross-sector risk modeling experience, including public-private partnerships, PPP, between governments, academia, insurance, and engineering. GRI has been initiated with partial funding and in-kind contribution from insurance sector and partner institutions. It will help in mobilizing the trillions of, uh, of dollars of investment. So GRI partners and supporters include CDRI, Coalition for Climate Resilient Investment, and others. Okay, this was about GRII. Now we'll talk about cheetah reproduction. So this has also been in news from last 1 year. Recently, Union Minister of Environment, Forest and Climate Change has launched action plan for introduction of cheetah in India, under which 50 of these big cats will be introduced in next 5 years. The action plan was launched at the 19th meeting of NTCA. So here important is cheetah. What kind of cheetah here? It is important to remember that since Iran has refused, which is currently the country having Asian cheetah, they've refused that they'll provide Asian cheetahs. So African cheetahs are expected to be brought in, and so African cheetah will be brought in. NTCA, National Tiger Conservation Authority, the action plan was launched by NTCA. So what is NTCA? It is a statutory body under the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. With help from Wildlife Institute of India and the Wildlife Trust of India, the ministry will be translocating around 8 to 12 cheetahs from South Africa, Namibia, and Botswana, which has African cheetahs. These countries have the world's largest population of cheetahs. The big cats will live in Kuno Palpur National Park. Again, here important will become Kuno Palpur National Park, owing to its suitable habitat adequate prey base. So here we'll know, okay, the difference between African cheetah and Asiatic cheetah. IUCN status is vulnerable for African, whereas for Asiatic it is critically endangered. CITES status, Appendix 1, African cheetah of the list. This list comprises of migratory species that have been assessed as being in danger of extinction throughout all of or the significant portion of their range. Whereas Asiatic cheetah, again Appendix 1 of the list. Habitat. African cheetah lives around 65 and 7,000. So totally there are 6,500 to 7,000 Africans currently staying in the wild in the countries mentioned, South Africa, Namibia, and Botswana. Whereas, as I discussed earlier, Asiatic cheetah is only found in Iran currently, and 40 to 50 are only left. Physical characteristics, if African cheetah is bigger in size as compared to Asiatic cheetah, whereas Asiatic cheetah is smaller and paler than African cheetah, has more fur, a smaller head, and a longer neck. Usually have red eyes and they have more cat-like appearance. Miyawaki forest or Miyawaki method. So here, the focus is, the Miyawaki is a concept where the urban forests have been created. What does it talk about? What is it? So firstly, plant, seedlings into a plant site is, established. Maintenance is necessary for 1 or 3 years. How this method is done, it is explained here. After that, nature will foster the planted seedlings. No management is best. So like in forest, no particular management will be required. So collecting seeds and seedlings just after germination from natural forest, and then germinated seeds in the propagation bed, transplant them into pots at the stage of budding 2 to 3 days. Transfer to the seedling bed under shade roof. So this is the process. Miyawaki forest actually is a method of, where urban spaces will have very dense forest-like canopy or say plantation. This will help in bringing, and they are more of self-regulatory, like the forest are. So not much maintenance would be required. At the same time, they'll be repository of, they'll control CO2 emissions. They'll bring, clean the environment also, uh, increase the oxygen levels in the area. This is a method which is being experimented across where the dense population has come up, and where the areas are small. So Miyawaki is being, still it is more in an experimental basis right now. So it is actually have them adopted to natural environment conditions in the existing forest. So right now these, what last 2 years regular articles have come out, Miyawaki forest or Miyawaki method. Here important is what is Miyawaki method, right? Uh, if there are any examples you should know, though mean the process also what right now which is given in front of you. So this is what you should concentrate on Miyawaki method, Miyawaki forest. The next topic which we'll be talking about is Amazon of Europe. So recently UNESCO, right? UNESCO designated Mura, Drava, Danube. Mura, Drava, Danube. Very important, these three. Why? Because 2 years earlier, actually, a question had come on Danube. A reference was there in one of the prelims questions. You cannot ignore that the river is in another, continent. It might not be very important. All the major rivers actually are important from UPSC point of view. The continental rivers. The question has come. Mura, Dravid, Danube. Danube actually has been asked. So now in this Amazon of Europe, UNESCO designated MDD, which is Mura, Drava, Danube, which are three rivers, as the world's first 5-country biosphere reserve. So this is the world's first 5-country biosphere reserve. So biosphere reserve covers 700 kilometers of Mura, Drava, and Danube rivers and stretches across Austria, Slovenia, Croatia, Hungary, and Serbia. These are the 5 countries across which this biosphere reserve. The total area of reserve, 1 million hectares in the so-called. So that is why, since it is covering so much area across, the continent, hence it is, known as Amazon of Europe. Makes it largest riverine protected area in the continent. Right. So here Danube rivers, right? What is biosphere reserve? Similarly, biosphere reserves in India will become important. You should be aware. And the countries in which this MDD biosphere reserve covers the area. Why this was designated as biosphere? It will advance the protection and revitalization of the Mura, Drava, Danube area and boost sustainable business practices. It will also enhance cross-border cooperation. The aim is to revitalize 25,000 kilometers of rivers and protect 30% of European Union's land area by 2030. Why is MDD significant? Firstly, the reserve is home to floodplain forest, gravel and sandbanks, river islands, oxbows and meadows. Secondly, it is home to continental Europe's highest density of breeding white-tailed ewing, as well as endangered species such as little tern, blackstock, otters, beavers, and sturgeons. Thirdly, it is also important annual resting and feeding place for more than 250,000 migratory birds, according to Worldwide Fund for Nature. Fourthly, the reserve is inhabited by almost 9 lakh people too. Hence, that is why it is very significant. Right. So, important topic, Amazon of Europe. Next topic we'll be covering blue flag certification. So you must have come across this. So India's 12 beaches have been selected for blue flag certification. Before we go into it, what is blue flag beach? A beach which with blue flag certification awarded for all round high quality is a blue flag. Okay. So under this, a beach needs to meet 30 to 33 standards for water quality, safety, environmental education, and information. Also, it should be given by Foundation for Environmental Education amongst member countries. So, a blue flag is one of the world's most recognized voluntary eco labels, awarded to beaches, marinas, and sustainable boating tourism operators. and it is run by Foundation for Environmental Education. Foundation for Environmental Education, right? Blue Flag Beach, which all 12. So these are 12 beaches. Shivrajpur Beach in Gujarat, Gogave Beach in Maharashtra, Gogla in Diu, Miramar in Goa, Kasargod and Paduburi, Padubidri, sorry, Karnataka, Kappa, Kerala, Eden, Puducherry, Mahabalipuram, Tamil Nadu, Rushikonda, Andhra Pradesh, Golden Beach, Odisha, and Radhanagar Beach, Andaman and Nicobar Islands. So these are the beaches. Uh, One more thing is the Union Minister of Environment, uh, and Climate Change, Union Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change has selected these 12 beaches. Currently, Japan and Korea and South Korea are the only countries in Asia to have blue flag beaches. So India would be the third one. Spain has the highest number of blue flag beaches, which are 566, followed by Greece, which are 515, and France has 395. This is blue flag beach. Gross environment product. You've heard about GDP. You know about GDP, right? But what is GEP? Uttarakhand government has announced that it will initiate valuation of its natural resources in form of gross environment product. It is along the lines of GDP. GDP gives the economic output for consumers from the consumer side. It is the sum of private consumption, gross investment in the economy, government investment and government spending, and net foreign trade. So these are four things, right? Which you've read in your basics of economy. It was established in 1997. This concept, gross environment product, by ecological economists like Robert Costanza. Name isn't important. It is an assessment system to measure ecological status. It is considered as a product and service value that the ecosystem provides for human welfare and economic and social sustainable development. So overall, GEP accounts for economic value of the ecosystem in providing products and services, and it is one of the components of green GDP. Green GDP is an indicator of economic growth with environmental factors taken into consideration along with standard GDP of country. It factors biodiversity losses and cost attributed to climate change. Now, this diagram very nicely explains what are the factors, what are things included in GDP and GEP. For GDP, for example, the growth in mining, manufacturing, construction, transportation, storage, information technology, wholesale retail trade, financial, insurance, real estate, public administration, other services are included. Exclusively in GP, water retention, flood mitigation, soil retention, right? Sandstorm prevention, pollination, carbon sequestration, mental health, air purification, water purification, and climate regulations. Whereas the common would be, for example, agriculture, forestry, fishing. So these are common ones to both GEP and GDP, right? So this was about gross environment product. The next is the renewable purchase obligation. So renewable purchase obligation, I'll come to that why it was in news. So Telangana has been particularly vocal about the increasing burden forced upon states by the center on account of clean energy cess imposed on coal and the renewable purchase obligations. Now, renewable purchase obligation is that every state discom has to buy a limited quantity of renewable energy through the grid, right? So it can, this percentage varies over the years. So as of now, for that they will be given renewable energy certificates also once they get. So it is a policy instrument to catalyze the development of renewable energy. It is a market-based mechanism that will help the states meet their regulatory requirements, such as renewable purchase obligation, by overcoming the geographical constraints on existing renewable potential in different states. In a way, it will also promote the use of more and more use of renewable energy. Why it was used initially was that renewable energy was pretty little more expensive than the, let's say, thermal energy. So just to push, increase in purchasing, so that the sector can be further promoted. That is why the renewable purchase obligation concept was introduced. So under RPO, power distribution companies purchase a certain percentage of their requirement from renewable energy sources, right? So this is renewable purchase obligation. Next, we come on to the topic species in news. I've divided into 5 parts. species and news 1 to 5. The first one will cover critically endangered ones. I'm not covering holistically because the list can go very wide. What has been in news, I've covered only those. Ghadial, you can also look at its scientific name. It is found in Ramganga River in Corbett National Park, Indus River, Ganges River, Hastinapur. Uh, Wildlife Sanctuary, Girwa. Here, very important is this one, Chambal River, National Chambal Sanctuary. Question actually has come in prelims 2 to 3 years ago. 2020, I think so, yes. Conservation, as I told you, status critically endangered. According to sites, it is in Appendix 1, Wildlife Protection Act. Okay, Schedule 1. So it's a Schedule 1. Bengal floricon, Bengal bustard. It's found in Terai region, Uttar Pradesh, Assam, and Arunachal Pradesh. Critically endangered, Appendix 1, and Wildlife Protection Act 19 Schedule 1. Okay, next one is lesser floricon. So, right. So this also grasslands of Gujarat, Madhya Pradesh, Andhra Pradesh. Here, again, critically endangered, but in sites Appendix 2 and Wildlife Protection Act Schedule 1. Himalayan brown bear, Jammu and Kashmir, Himachal Pradesh, Uttarakhand. IUCN critically endangered sites, it is not mentioned, and Wildlife Protection Act Schedule 1. Great Indian bustard, dry grasslands of India, but mainly found in Rajasthan. IUCN critically endangered sites, Appendix 1 and WPA 1972 Schedule 1. But personally, what I feel is very important this year is caracal, because it has come from endangered to critically endangered. Rajasthan, Gujarat, Madhya Pradesh, and listed as critically endangered species. Yeah. IUCN, as I told you, critically endangered sites Appendix 1 and Schedule 1. So caracal, personally, I feel is more important. Second, species news endangered. You can go through it. Greater adjutant stork, Indian pangolin, red panda, lion-tailed macaque, Asian elephant. Right. We parallelly go through its location. Right. Greater adjutant stork, Bihar, Assam, Indian pangolin throughout India except for northeastern states. Red. In northeastern states, actually there is. Are you aware? So pangolin is there in northeastern states, but why it isn't mentioned it except for northeast? Because in northeastern states you'll find Chinese pangolin, right? It's Chinese pangolin. Red panda, right? Red panda is Darjeeling, Sikkim, Arunachal Pradesh. Lion-tailed macaque is their Asian elephant, right? So just parallelly see its status. Third, we'll do near threatened. Here I've talked about Oriental darter or snake bird. The freshwater found in freshwater habitats of India. IUCN is near threatened. Sites not mentioned, and even Wildlife Protection Act not mentioned. Black-necked crane is found in Union Territory of Ladakh. Adopted black-necked crane as a state bird. So it is important. Black-necked crane is state bird found only in Ladakh's Changthang region. Important. See, something which is very unique, which is limited to a particular place, have a special significance, are generally more important. IUCN near threatened, Sites Appendix 1 and Schedule 1 for WPA 1972. Species and news for vulnerable one, clouded leopard, Indian flapshell turtle, olive ridley turtle, giant leatherback turtle, Indian star tortoise. So all these come under the vulnerable, ubura, bustard, fishing cat, sloth, bear. I've just mentioned the important ones, so do go through it and their respective habitats and also their sites and WPA 1972 status, which schedule they come and appendix. Right. Then finally, I've talked about least concern ones. All these are whatever I've mentioned are with respect to your Indian specific and important for prelims point of view. I've not mentioned. I've mentioned only which have come in news for last 1.5 years. Right. The next topic which we will be covering right now is the tiger reserves in India. Currently, there are 53 as on date tiger reserves. Here the list is given. I'll specify the important ones here. So if you remember 2020 prelims, UPSC asked relatively a lot of questions from protected areas, and out of that, 2 to 3 questions were dedicatedly from tiger reserve. And question was on critical tiger habitat, and you know, asking which of them has a highest critical tiger habitat. And I've taken this diagram from the government website. In this list, there are total 52 tiger reserves. But as I told, there are 53. Since the government site has updated in February, in March, one more was added. The name of the tiger reserve was uh, Guru Ghasidas. Guru Ghasidas Tiger Reserve, found in Chhattisgarh, northern Chhattisgarh, right? So that is the 53rd tiger reserve. Again, here, not each and every one is important, every part is important, but specifically, you should look at the ones which have been added recently, which have been news, which I'll talk about more here. But I've given this exhaustive list of 53 because this, more or less, you should hear about it, which state and why they are important. And core area, what is core area, what is buffer area, right? You should be aware about it. The 53, I'm not saying you have to know each and every one. Go through it. Specifically look at the important ones, which have been used in this year. Though I'll be covering few, but you should look at this list once for sure. 2020, 7 questions alone protected areas. 2021, not even one question. 2022, you never know. You can expect 2-3 questions again, right? Topic 76 to 78, important tiger reserves, national parks, and wildlife sanctuaries in news. So, Andhra Pradesh, Attapaka Bird Sanctuary was in news. It is located in Kolleru Lake, a Ramsar site. So, it's a Ramsar site. We've already talked about Ramsar site in one of the lectures, right? Recently, the Attapaka Bird Sanctuary has become a safe breeding ground for 2 migratory birds, which is grey pelicans and painted storks. That is why they were in news. Andhra Pradesh, Nagarjun Sagar Srishalam Tiger Reserve, very important. The largest in India. It covers Guntur, Prakasham, Kurnool districts. Hey, one more thing. It covers these districts, but the students from Andhra Pradesh knows that the districts have been realigned. So I'm not sure if it is still Guntur, Prakasham, Kurnool. Andhra Pradesh has totally changed the sizes and the structure of their districts. Of Andhra Pradesh, Nalgonda and Mahbubnagar districts of Telangana. It was recognized by Project Tiger in 1983, located in the deciduous Nallamala forests. It covers a total area of 3,800 square kilometer. This is, as I told you, it's the biggest. The number of tigers in Nagarjun Sagar Srishalam Tiger Reserve has gone up, reversing a declining trend thanks to efforts of Tiger Conservation Foundation. That is why it was in news. Arunachal Pradesh, Tally Valley Wildlife Sanctuary. It is a wildlife sanctuary and also biodiversity hotspot near Zero Town in Arunachal Pradesh, situated at the altitude of 2,400 meters. Pangesipu Karing and Subansiri rivers flow through it. Clouded leopard and Pleoblastos Simone bamboo are found here, right? And recently, it was in news because a new non-venomous burrowing species of snake, Trachycium apti, was found here. Arunachal Pradesh, Namdapha National Park was also in news. It is a protected area in the eastern Himalayan biodiversity hotspot. It is also the 3rd largest national park in India. 3rd largest, right? It is the only park in the world to be home to 4 cats. Only national park. 4 cats. Oh, that is very important. It is snow leopard, clouded leopard, common leopard, and tigers. Pool of gibbons, the only ape species in India, is also found here. Only ape species also in India. Recently, it was in news, the Indian Air Force has inaugurated a resurfaced runway at Vijayanagar, India's easternmost village near Namdapha National Park. Arunachal Pradesh Pakke Tiger Reserve was also there in news. It falls within the eastern Himalayan biodiversity hotspot. It is also known as Pakki Tiger Reserve. It is famous for 4 resident hornbill species. So in news, government of Arunachal is planning to build 692.7 kilometer highway called the East-West Industrial Corridor through Pakki. That is why it was in news. In Assam, Kaziranga National Park, that almost one of the most important national parks in the eastern and also across India. It was declared as a national park, in year 1974, and UNESCO. It's also UNESCO World Heritage Site. Which was declared in 1985, and a tiger reserve in 2007. It has also been recognized as important bird area by BirdLife International. One-horned rhinos, tigers, wild water buffalo, and swamp deer are found. Okay. The river Brahmaputra flows to its north, and river Deeplu runs through it. Right. It was in news because the second wetland bird count was conducted here from 9 to the so it right in 2020. Assam, Pavitra Wildlife Sanctuary. It has highest density of one-horned rhinoceros in the world. It is also known as Mini Kaziranga. 72% of sanctuary is wet savanna. Water hyacinth, right, is a major problem. Yes. The invasive water hyacinth. Chinese pangolins, as we were talking earlier, and Asiatic wild water buffalo are also found here. Other ones you can go through Vikramshila Gangetic Dolphin Sanctuary, right? Goa's Mahadai Wildlife Sanctuary, right? Very important again here. Goa's Netravali Wildlife Sanctuary, Haryana's Asola Bhatti Wildlife Sanctuary, right? Karnataka's Bandipur Tiger Reserve, very important one. Karnataka's Malai Mahadeshwara Wildlife Sanctuary, Karnataka's Kaveri Wildlife Sanctuary, Madhya Pradesh Bandhavgarh National Park, it was in news. Noradehi Wildlife Sanctuary, Van Vihar National Park in Madhya Pradesh was important. I'm not going to go in details. The document which will be uploaded on the website, you can download it and can read about it. Very much concise. It is written to the point. What is required in news, you can read about it. Madhya Pradesh, Ratapani Wildlife Sanctuary, Naldana Bird Sanctuary also in Odisha. Rajasthan's Sariska Tiger Reserve was in Telangana Papikonda National Park. Right, all this Amrabad Tiger Reserve, Dudhwa National Park have been. So I've covered all these which were important in news. Uh, if you feel I've missed out on something, you can read it on your. But I've given an exhaustive list of 53 tiger reserves. Here you should focus primarily on. Firstly, there is limited list of biosphere reserve and tiger reserves which you can go through. But there is a pretty much exhaustive list of over 105 national parks and over 540 wildlife sanctuaries. Is practically impossible to know by heart. Hence, you should focus on the important ones which are consistently coming in news, having special characteristic. That is what your objective should be. In today's session, we've covered all the important topics of environment. Now, in the next session, I'll be talking about important topics of geography. Again, thank you for watching, and I'll be coming up soon with another session. Thank you again, and all the very best. Keep preparing for your exam. All the best.